What I found was it's not a one and done thing. And what's helped me a lot is staying in the steps, as they put it, is just an amazing thing.
Enormously helpful to me that we let go of our old ideas, absolutely. And that helped me keep an open mind.
I've heard it through the grapevine. Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine half-hour variety hour featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Don, an alcoholic in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Hey there, Don. Hey, everybody. I'm Sam, an alcoholic in Palm Springs, California.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Don. What you been doing? You look great.
Are you feeling hot?
Yeah, but that's kind of how it is out here in Palm Springs.
I was wondering if you might be feeling hot because today is a hot topic. It's God as we understood him.
A hot topic indeed.
Yeah, since the earliest days of Alcoholics Anonymous, we've wrestled sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently with what it means to surrender to a higher power. For some of us, we arrived at a clear and familiar understanding of God, and for others, the word itself raised questions, resistance, or even a firm no. That creative tension has been part of our story from the very beginning.
In the book Alcoholics Anonymous, it says, "Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself?" Today, we want to explore how two members with different perspectives have come to terms with this idea while working the steps. Carol S. has a religious background and Alex M. is an atheist. And we have lots of letters from listeners sharing their experience.
They're e-letters is what they are.
That is not how it took off, Don.
You know, I've been reading a history of the big book, and from the very beginning when Bill was writing the book and wrote the steps, he had two guys standing over his shoulder yelling at him to tone down on the religion. Then we had other people going, you need to focus on the disease. So this battle between the two has been going on since the very beginning.
Yeah, it's been going on all along.
This is a struggle I had when I came in and had to come to terms with.
You know, you were instrumental in me coming to terms with it. I don't know exact dates and times, but within about the first 3 months of me getting sober, you were a speaker. And you said something to the effect of that you had your own understanding of what it was, and it took you about 10 minutes to say what it was. And then one day you realized it was just easier to say God. And so I was able to turn that for me, that the word God is a placeholder.
The step is God as we understood him. So I needed to understand God, and I needed to explain what that was every time, because it's not what you're thinking. And I wanted to make that clear. And so I had to explain in great detail. And I wanted to be completely honest. And it was very hard to do. So, yeah, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
God's easier.
Now I'm at that place where I know what I mean when I say God. And it's probably not what you think I mean. But also it doesn't matter what you think I mean.
It evolves. And what I envision for today is to be able to talk about all the different points of view. And it's all still Alcoholics Anonymous. And we all come to terms and develop some sort of relationship with something that is greater than ourselves to be able to stay sober and work the steps.
Sounds like a good idea. There's a whole lot to talk about there. But first the news! Announcing our new Grapevine weekly AA open speaker meeting. Every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time. This is a very exciting new development in the AA Grapevine. We'll feature a host and two speakers each week, including Grapevine article contributors, AA members, and trusted servants. All are welcome. Don't miss it.
It's an online speaker meeting. Sit back, watch, and listen. Find the link in our Instagram account. Just search Instagram for AA Grapevine.
The Zoom meeting ID is 871-2036-8287. Passcode 238047.
Are Wednesdays not a good time for a meeting? Catch a recording of the meeting on our new podcast and on YouTube. Search Grapevine Weekly Open AA Meeting.
Hi, folks. We need your stories on the individual traditions. Pick one and write about your or your group's experience with it. How has a tradition played a part in your life? How has your understanding of a tradition changed? What is a personal experience where a tradition played a part? Visit aagrapevine.org for guidelines and to submit.
So let's meet our guest today. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Don.
Carol, you go first. Give us 5 minutes or so version of what you were like, what happened, and how you found AA.
Will do. I'm Carol. I'm an alcoholic. I began my recovery life in a different program. And eventually I got so crazy that I went to a sister program of ours to deal with my family members who also had our disease. Mm-hmm. And I worked steps in that program, and I got a sponsor in that program. And I could see, and I'm going to say this because it's just tickled me lately to think about this, they kept telling me the light at the end of the tunnel is not an oncoming train. And my thing on that is, but it is if you're in the wrong tunnel. So I finally got in the right tunnel. So I came into AA because of all the medications I've been treated with, not to mention the daily drinking. It was a really rough road in for me. So part of my story is that I sat in our rooms not sober. I could not get 24 hours. And this, by the way, my sobriety date is October 30th, because I didn't want it to be Halloween of 1989. And I'm just going to mention I was evicted from my first treatment center. They said, "Oh, you are too sick. We cannot help you." I don't wear that as a badge of honor, but I think it's kind of funny. Anyway, it was hard in those days in my middle part of the country to look at somebody like me and say, "Oh, there's someone who is being killed by alcohol and other substances." So it was just very hard for them to see that. But you all could see it. You all could see it. So I came in the rooms. You saw it right off the bat.
We know each other, don't we?
You did. You spotted me coming. And I was still sick and scared for a very long time. So part of my story is my immense gratitude to the people in the rooms who were so kind. And I recently heard this, and I just told somebody else about this. It just still tickles me. I was in a meeting recently, and somebody was talking about someone in their family, and she talked about him, and then she just said, "He is a hard dog to pet."
I've never heard that. I love that.
Isn't that wonderful? It's amazing what we hear in our rooms. And so what I can say is, even when I finally got sober, I was a really hard dog to pet. And there was so much kindness in our rooms. So I am of the personal belief, and so far, one day at a time, it has been true that one day at a time, I don't ever have to drink again. And in my case, I count any other substances. I tried that. That's not for anybody else, not a statement about anybody else, but for me, my sobriety includes anything and everything other than necessity. So anyway, that's kind of my short version. So I'm okay now. Nobody ever thought I would be, and now I am. So.
Carol, I'm right there with you. If I try anything on the buffet, the whole buffet is open. So I just don't.
That's good. I've never heard that either. So thank you.
Oh, Carol. Well, thanks for that. We're going to get back to you shortly. But Alex, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
It's a privilege to share with you this afternoon. And I have one sobriety day. It's 5/16/06. My home group in Louisville, Kentucky, is the Early Bird and Worm Group. I have a sponsor. My sponsor has a sponsor. Got sponsees. I was born an only child. My father was an angry alcoholic. My mother was a toxic woman. I felt like I didn't know what to do as a small child with what I was given. And I also found that I had a lot of difficulty fitting in with the peers around me. Early on, I would escape and feel better by reading. I call it a magic carpet to a safer, faraway place. But as I got into my teenage years, I discovered alcohol, and alcohol worked a lot better and a lot quicker in letting me calm my mind down and feel a part of with the people around me. And that was my feeling. I was not overly, I was not getting drunk, but a couple of beers felt pretty good. A little bit of liquor as I got older, I found again worked quicker and better. And that's really the way I dealt with my stress and anxiety and loneliness. And I'm a physician, and I always wanted to be a physician. And I knew that that would take a long time, a lot of schooling, a long time. And I didn't have a problem with it. I could start and stop whenever I wanted. It wasn't an issue. Obviously, when I practiced, I was a general practitioner, internist. Never drank on the job or before the job or anything like that. I started having a loss of control of my drinking when I couldn't start and stop whenever I wanted to. It was about a year or so before I came into AA. And I didn't understand what happened. It was like a switch was flipped. I was just, everything was good. Nothing happened specifically. And then all of a sudden, I found myself having to drink, having to start drinking in the morning, having to drink throughout the day. And at that time, I had been offered a very good administrative job in the medical field. I was married at the time. I was married to my second wife. As soon as we got back from our honeymoon, she got very sick and had kidney cancer, widespread, and she died within about 6 months of us getting married. And it was at that point, I just couldn't cope. A lot of people tried to help me, including counselors, church, that sort of thing. And I finally realized when I got suicidal, because I didn't want to live that way and I couldn't stop, I said, I need help. And a good friend of mine, I knew about AA. Everybody knows about AA. Said, I'll take you down to a meeting. In that first meeting, just for some reason, affected me a lot. I heard the laughter in the rooms. I was scared to go in, sat in the back, but I did admit, I'm a newcomer when they asked. And of course, I was surrounded by a bunch of guys. I said, well, how do y'all not drink? And, it's one day at a time, and so I tried that. I had the 1 minute, 1 hour. I can make it till 9 o'clock. I can make it till 11 in the morning, just an hour or two at a time. And I got through by not drinking, but, I was a dry drunk, it was awful. And they all told me, you get a sponsor, you do the step work. And that's what helped us find a better way of life. And we believe it can help you too, if you are willing to put the work and effort into it. However, I never, as a young man, believed in God. But all the other part, the rituals, I just thoroughly enjoyed. But God just wasn't part of that, and that was fine. It wasn't a big deal.
What about your sponsor?
Oh, I told him right away. And he said, don't worry about it. Let's just go through the steps. He said, you'll figure it out. And the God of my understanding, I don't have a God. So there's not anything for me to understand about God. And that's fine. It just is not a part of my life. But I did have to find something that non-human, if you will, spiritual, whatever that means, to hang on, sort of in AA, I call it a higher power.
How do you use the step, and how would you describe it to a sponsee, for example, step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him?
Well, first thing I ask is, do you believe in God?
Mm-hmm.
And if the person believes in God, no problem.
Right.
I suggest you find something that you can grab onto in those dark nights of the soul that will help you. And, for me, it's a cosmic thing, universe, nature, all that kind of stuff.
Carol, how has this shown up in your recovery? Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him.
Well, the first way it showed up for me was I want nothing to do with that G word. Where I grew up, the God word had a very bad reputation, at least for me. And so the first way it showed up was, oh my God, I needed so much help. I'm from the part of the world where it can get snowy. And what somebody said was, if your car's in the ditch in the snow and you try and get it out by yourself, you can't. But if we all go out there together, we can get that car out of the ditch. And that was my first understanding of higher power. And I do remember complaining and saying, what's this spiritual awakening? Everybody's talking about it, sick of hearing about it. And somebody saying somewhat gently, well, have you made it to the 12th step yet? Because that's where that is. So what I find is that every time I go through the steps, that continues to open for me. What I say is watch out for that 11th step, because the last thing on my list was that I would have anything to do with religion. And now I too wear a little collar on.
So now you are a religious professional.
Yeah. Yes, I am. So my understanding now of step 3, and fortunately this works in my religious tradition, it's what you all have been saying. God is a shorthand word for me. And when I first went in to see if the higher power of recovery lived in church, I pretty much quickly turned around and said, nope, not here, because it was so overladen for me with old ideas. And I thought that word God and religion in particular was confined. The higher power that keeps me sober is also expressed in the language of my religious life, but not confined there. That's the best way I know how to put it.
Let's turn to some letters that people have written in, and we'll get y'all to respond. This is from Ian J. In AA, I saw people who were happy, healthy, and sober, sharing their experience, strength, and hope. I realized that if they can do it, I can do it. The second step is...
Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
The first time I did it, I saw the power greater than ourselves as the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I suggest this way of thinking to newcomers who are struggling with the concept of a higher power or God. In chapter 4, the concept of being restored to sanity is illustrated in the statement, the thought of a drink has never returned, and God has restored us to sanity. Restored his sanity is almost identical to the phrase, restore us to sanity in the second step. Some of the early preambles of Alcoholics Anonymous stated that people's religious views are their own affair, which emphasizes that AA is a spiritual but not a religious program, welcoming people of all beliefs by letting each member define their own higher power. I believe it's useful to offer newcomers this way of looking at the second step so as not to turn off agnostics, atheists, etc. The Big Book line, with the help of this program, we can recover, leaves open the possibility that they can find or get closer to a God of their own understanding through this program. I hope this is helpful. Best regards, Ian J. Alex, did that shake anything loose?
I thought that was well put. And how someone defines the God of their understanding, if it works for them, more power to them.
Our next one is from Buddy C. with the subject, Surrender, my experience with surrender and the higher power. One definition of surrender is to give oneself up to the power of another, especially as a prisoner, to submit or give in. During my first 5 years of repeated slips in AA, I was doing the opposite. I kept asking the God I came into AA with to help me stay sober. In reality, God was not greater than me because I thought I controlled God through belief, faith, and good deeds. There was no surrender in this approach at all. Instead, I was asking God to make me more powerful, not to let go and stop fighting. When I finally stopped trying and gave up, saying I was done, either this worked or I would find a way to kill myself, my craving for alcohol immediately lifted and has not returned in over 16 years. I could not believe how easily it happened once I stopped the self effort to quit. I also found it odd that I was not told what to believe. As I practiced this program in my life, I realized that everything can be viewed as being greater than myself. I can stop fighting, as I did with alcohol. When I do, I begin to see solutions I had never noticed before. My role is different from what I originally thought. First, to express gratitude for the situation at hand, whether I see it as good or bad. And second, to seek ways to be helpful in this moment. I can approach any situation in life this way by taking the next helpful action I see in my path, regardless of how difficult or demanding the situation may be. Buddy C. in Center, Alabama.
Yeah, I would love to pick up on that word surrender because two things about that. First of all, one of the things that opened the doors for me was the line that we'll cease fighting anything and anyone. And I was so exhausted from fighting that sounded good. The word surrender sounded awful and terrifying. And so I changed it. I do this. I alter the words in the big book for myself. Again, it's that idea of getting to what I think the meaning is under it. And I decided the meaning under that word for me was relax. Just relax. It took me 9 years to find an understanding of a higher power that I could do a complete third step with and totally relax.
This one's from Gerry C. His experience is our experience in sobriety with God. Hi, folks. I had no belief in God at all when I came in. God let me down as I prayed for an end to childhood bullying and other unpleasant experiences in my youth. And then I began to experience some measure of success without any God in my life. So when I got here, having no idea of a God or belief, I was just so desperate that I did whatever seemed right to you all. It was a lot of years in sobriety before I first heard the phrase gift of desperation as another meaning for God. But that's really what I was experiencing in those early days. My first sponsor that said, there are only two things you need to know about God, Gerry. There is one, and you're not it. Over time, my faith in and reliance on a higher power I still can't define or explain has grown and deepened. Today, I don't know whether God is a he, a she, an it, none, or all of the above. But I believe to the bottom of my heart that God doesn't care what I think they are. God only needs me to turn to them for help to become a part of my life. That's Gerry C., Peachland, British Columbia, Canada. Alex?
I find in the rooms that when we start talking about God specifically, everyone has their own concept. My attitude is just find it. I had to be beaten down really hard. So what I try to emphasize is it's okay whether you believe in God or not. It doesn't matter to finding a decent life and a decent sober life. You know, God is not a requirement.
Thanks, Alex. Carol?
You know, I was thinking about, I actually went to the first Star Wars movie, and the voice comes from probably Obi-Wan Kenobi saying, use the Force, Luke. And the theater erupts in cheers. I get that. And what the person was saying is the theater erupts in cheers because everybody knows what that means. Use the Force, Luke, that there is something that's going to help Luke. And I love that. I still think that's one of the best God as I understand God things I've ever heard. It's still true for me.
and we share our experience so often through our stories. And for so many times in my life, GOD, group of drunks, has shown up for me as that higher power.
Yeah.
I love all of the acronyms that we've heard over the years. One of the funniest ones, but really was touching, was from a guest, I think, on here many years ago. Good, old, and dead. Think of a person who is good, old, and dead, and let them be your higher power.
With me, the whole idea of God for me has always been in retrospect that I found that I was asking for help. I never felt like I was getting help at the time. And then looking back, I would find I've been carried through this difficult situation, was able to go through it without drinking. By just remaining open and allowing that was my higher power carrying me through it, then I began open. And I liked what you said, Carol, about 9 years, because over time, it's quite easy for me to see where, for me now, I have remained open and I can see spiritual experiences as the way that I interpret the things that happen to me. Don't worry about the belief. Take the action and see what happens. Do not have contempt prior to investigation.
And may I just add, if my home group is called Bill's Friends, and one of our kind of catchphrases in my home group is "do it anyway."
And Alex's group is Early Bird and the Worm, so that it's going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this has been wonderful. I want to say a quick shout out. Ian, Buddy, and Gerry, thank you so much for writing into us. We really appreciate you doing that. Folks, we want to hear your thoughts on this particular subject. God, not God, religion, not religious, atheist, agnostic. Give us a call at 212-870-3418 and leave us a message. You can also find the number at aagrapevine.org. You can also click the podcast link up top and you'll find an email address that you can send a recorded message to. Also, we recently found out that our phone number was not working properly, and we would encourage any of you who called and did not get what you were expecting to please call again.
Yes, call and leave a message. One of the things I love about the Grapevine is this is not the voice of AA. This is the collected voices of AA. And I want to thank Alex and Carol for being here and sharing your particular voice and your particular point of view.
Thank you so much, y'all.
I'm Clay from Santa Barbara, alcoholic. I subscribe to the Grapevine because I want my home group to have access to that, all the stories that they can identify to. And a lot of people in my home group do H&I, and those little booklets are priceless to them. My home group subscribes to the Grapevine so that we can have it available to everyone. I recommend the Grapevine for people, definitely.
If you enjoy this podcast, please consider sharing it with another AA member or group.
Subscribe today in print or in the app. It's only $2.99 a month, and it really does help support the podcast.
$3 a month? Come on.
I'm at the very wit's end. Cuckoo.
A gardener and an architect are discussing which of their vocations is the most ancient while a drunk is listening nearby.
My vocation in horticulture goes back to the Garden of Eden when God told Adam to tend the garden.
Well, the school of architecture goes back to the creation when God created the world itself from primordial chaos.
And who do you think created the primordial chaos?
It's really not that funny. Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org, including our app and how to get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to know more about AA, visit AA.org or search online for Alcoholics Anonymous and your city.